The lower decks of Starhold Venetrix smelled like engine grease and recycled air. Pipes ran along the ceiling like metal veins, dripping condensation onto the grated floors below. Down here, far from the clean halls where merchants and diplomats walked, the forgotten people of the station made their lives. Cole Brennan wiped his hands on a rag that was already black with oil. His workshop was small, barely 30 feet across, crammed with spare parts, broken engines, and tools he had collected over 15 years. A flickering sign above the door read, "Brennan Repairs," in faded letters. Most days, only a handful of customers came through. That was fine with him. He was 46 years old, with gray creeping into his brown hair and lines carved deep around his eyes. His hands were rough and scarred, the hands of a man who had spent his life working with metal and fire. He wore simple clothes, a gray jumpsuit stained with grease, boots that had seen better days. Nothing about him suggested he was anything more than what he appeared to be. A tired mechanic living a quiet life in the shadows of a space station. Cole liked it that way. He finished tightening a bolt on a small hovercart engine and set down his wrench. The Valori merchant who owned the cart would be back in an hour to pick it up. 50 credits for 2 hours of work. Enough to buy food for the week and keep the lights on. He didn't need much. The station hummed around him, a constant vibration that he had learned to ignore. Starhold Venetrix sat at the edge of contested space, a neutral zone where humans and dozens of alien species came together to trade, negotiate, and occasionally fight. 20 years ago, this region had been a war zone. The Dragon Wars had burned through these stars like a wildfire, leaving millions dead on both sides. Cole remembered the war. He remembered it every night when he closed his eyes. He walked to the small kitchen at the back of his shop and poured himself a cup of cold coffee. Through a grimy window, he could see the corridor outside, where aliens of various species walked past without looking in. A group of Thelki, small furry creatures with 4 arms, hurried by carrying boxes. A Morvani, tall and blue-skinned with 3 eyes, stopped to check something on a datapad before moving on. And occasionally, a Draconian would pass, their scaled bodies and powerful frames, drawing nervous glances from the other species. Cole watched the Draconians with empty eyes. He didn't hate them anymore. He was too tired for hate. But he couldn't look at them without seeing the faces of friends who had died fighting their kind. The Dragon Wars had lasted 12 years. Humanity had been expanding into the galaxy for 2 centuries when they first encountered the Draconian Ascendancy, a proud empire of reptilian warriors who believed the stars belonged to them by divine right. The first contact went badly. The second went worse. And then came the war. Cole had enlisted at 19, a kid from a farming colony who wanted to see the stars. He got his wish. He saw stars burning. He saw planets dying. He saw things that no amount of years could wash from his memory. He had been good at war. That was the worst part. He had a talent for killing, for surviving when others fell, for making the hard choices that won battles. By the end, he was a legend. The Ghost of Corinth Prime, they called him. The man who had broken through impossible defenses and ended the siege that would have cost 1,000,000 lives. They wanted to give him medals. They wanted to put his face on recruitment posters. They wanted to hand him the Serpent's Fang, the highest honor a human soldier could receive. A ceremonial blade forged from the hull of humanity's first warship to survive a draconian ambush. Cole had refused it all. He walked away from the military, from Earth, from everyone who knew his name. He drifted from station to station, planet to planet, until he found this place. A forgotten corner of a forgotten deck where nobody asked questions and nobody cared about the past. He had been here for 8 years now. 8 years of fixing engines and welding broken hulls and pretending to be nobody. 8 years of peace, or something close to it. The door to his shop slid open with a hiss of old hydraulics. Cole turned. expecting to see the Valori merchant. Instead, he saw a draconian. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, with dark green scales that had faded to gray in patches. One of her legs was mechanical, a prosthetic made of black metal and glowing circuits. Her eyes were yellow with vertical pupils, and they studied him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. She was old, he realized. Old for a draconian, which meant she had lived through the war. "I need repairs," she said. Her voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "My ship's engine is failing. Someone told me you work on Terran Draconian hybrid tech." Cole kept his face neutral. "I work on a lot of things." "What kind of ship?" "A cargo hauler. Old model." "Oh, modified with parts from both our peoples." That was common now. After the war, the two civilizations had been forced into an uneasy peace. Trade happened. Technology mixed. Ships like hers were a product of that blending, neither fully human nor fully draconian. "I can take a look," Cole said. "Bring it to Docking Bay 17. I'll meet you there in an hour." The draconian nodded slowly. Her eyes lingered on him for a moment too long, and something flickered in their yellow depths. Recognition? Suspicion? He couldn't tell. "My name is Kethera," she said. "Kethera Version." "Cole," he replied, offering nothing more. She turned and walked out, her mechanical leg clicking against the metal floor. Cole watched her go, a cold feeling settling in his stomach. He had seen that look before, in the eyes of soldiers who were trying to place a face from their past. He told himself it was nothing. He was just a mechanic. Nobody special. Nobody worth remembering. But as he gathered his tools and headed for the docking bay, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. That the quiet life he had built was about to crack, open like thin ice over dark water that he had spent 20 years running from his past. Now, standing in the shadow of a draconian ship with a warrior who had fought on the other side of his war, Cole Brennan wondered if his past had finally found him. The engine of her ship was worse than she had described. It would take hours to fix, maybe days. Cole knelt beside the machinery and began to work, losing himself in the familiar rhythm of repairs dot above him. Kethera watched and remembered. Version had learned patience during the war. She had learned to wait in darkness for days, watching human positions, counting their movements, studying their weaknesses. That patience had kept her alive when so many of her clutchmates had fallen. Now she used that patience to watch the human. Mechanic Cole Brennan worked on her ship for 3 days. He arrived early each morning, before the station's artificial lights had fully brightened, and he stayed late into the night. He spoke little, only asking questions about the engine or the parts he needed. When he wasn't working, he sat alone, drinking coffee from a battered metal cup and staring at nothing. Kethera told herself she was simply being careful. Humans had killed her people. Humans had killed her clutch brother Vorthan. During the siege of Corinth Prime, she had every right to be suspicious of one who worked in shadows and avoided eye contact. But it was more than suspicion that kept her watching. It was something in the way he moved. On the second day, she saw him reach for a tool without looking, his hand finding it exactly where it should be, even though someone had moved it. Soldiers developed that awareness. Mechanics did not. On the third day, she saw the scars. He had pushed up his sleeves while welding a cracked fuel line, and she glimpsed the marks on his forearms. Burned scars, old and faded, the kind that came from plasma fire. And on his shoulder, half hidden beneath his collar, she saw the edge of a tattoo. Her blood ran cold. She knew that symbol. Every draconian who had fought in the war knew it. 2 cross blades over a skull with the number 77 beneath. The mark of the 77th Void Stalkers, the most feared human unit in the entire conflict. The Void Stalkers had been assassins, saboteurs, and shock troops rolled into one. They had struck without warning and vanished like ghosts. They had broken sieges that should have been unbreakable and killed commanders who should have been untouchable, and at Corinth Prime, they had done the impossible. Kethra's mechanical leg ached as memories flooded back. She had been there on the draconian side. She remembered the chaos when the human strike team had penetrated their defenses. She remembered the explosions, the screaming, the moment when she had looked up to see her brother's body falling from a shattered platform. They had never found who killed Vorthen. The attack had been too fast, too brutal, but she had always known it was a Void Stalker, one of those human demons who moved through battle like shadows and left only death behind. She waited until Cole finished his work for the day. Then she followed him. He walked through the lower decks with the ease of someone who knew every corner and shadow. He nodded to a few aliens, but spoke to no one. His path wound through maintenance tunnels and forgotten corridors until he reached his small workshop. Kethra did not approach. Instead, she returned to the station's central hub and found a public terminal. Her claws clicked against the keys as she searched military databases, cross-referencing the 77 Void Stalkers with the name Cole Brennan. The first results were classified. The second results were incomplete. But the third result made her stop breathing. A single photograph, grainy and old, showed a young human soldier receiving a medal. The man in the picture was 20 years younger, with short dark hair and fierce eyes, but the face was unmistakable. It was Cole. The caption beneath the photo read, "Sergeant Cole Brennan, awarded the Silver Nebula for valor at the Battle of Theric Station. Nominated for the Serpent's Fang following the siege of Corinth Prime. Status: declined all honors. Current location: unknown." Kethra stared at the screen until her vision blurred. The man who had been fixing her ship? The quiet mechanic who lived in shadows and spoke in short sentences? Was the hero of Corinth Prime, the human who had ended the siege, the soldier who had killed her brother? Her first instinct was to find him and tear out his throat. 20 years of grief and rage surged through her like fire. She could see it clearly in her mind, her claws around his neck, his blood on the floor. Justice finally delivered for Vorthen and all the others who had died. But she did not move. She was old now. 53 years, ancient by draconian standards. Her body was failing, held together by mechanical parts and stubborn will. She had spent 2 decades hauling cargo through empty space, trying to outrun memories that never faded. What would killing him change? Vorthen would still be dead. The war would still have happened. And she would become what she had always hated, a creature of vengeance with nothing left inside. She returned to the docking bay the next morning. Cole was already there, running final checks on her engine. He looked up when she approached, and for a moment, their eyes met. "It's done," he said. "Should run smooth for another 10 years if you take care of it." Kethra walked closer. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough to see the old scars on his face, the weariness in his eyes. "Were you there?" she asked. He went still. "Where?" "Corinth Prime." The silence stretched between them like a wire about to snap. Cole's face did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. A door closing, a wall going up. "Your ship is ready," he said quietly. "That's all that matters." He turned back to his tools, dismissing her. But Kethra did not leave. "I was there too," she said. "On the other side. I lost my clutch brother that day. His name was Vorthen." Cole's hands stopped moving. He stood with his back to her, frozen in place. "I'm not here for revenge," Kethra continued. "I'm too old and too tired for revenge. But I need to know. I need to understand why you hide here, pretending to be nobody, when you are the most decorated soldier of your generation." He did not answer for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat and empty. Because I'm not a hero. I'm just a man who was good at killing. And I've had enough of it." He walked away without looking back, disappearing into the maze of corridors. Cathra watched him go, her heart heavy with emotions she could not name. She had come here to get her ship fixed. Instead, she had found a ghost from her past, a broken warrior hiding from his own legend, and she had a feeling their story was far from over. Cole did not sleep that night. He sat in his workshop with the lights off, staring at the wall where shadows gathered like old friends. The Draconian's words echoed in his head, bouncing off memories he had tried to bury. Vorthan. She had given him a name. All these years, he had tried not to think about the faces of those he had killed. They were the enemy. They were targets. They were obstacles between him and survival. But now one of them had a name, and a sister who still mourned him. He remembered Corinth Prime with terrible clarity. The siege had lasted 8 months. 1 million human civilians trapped on the planet's surface while Draconian warships circled above, waiting for them to starve. The regular military had failed to break through. So they sent the Void Stalkers. Cole and his team had infiltrated the Draconian command ship through a garbage disposal port. They had crawled through filth and darkness for 6 hours before reaching the reactor core. The explosion had crippled the fleet's flagship, creating chaos that allowed human reinforcements to break the siege. During their escape, they had fought through dozens of Draconian soldiers. Cole had killed 7 of them himself. Any one of them could have been Vorthan. He didn't remember individual faces from that night. Just scales and teeth and claws, all blending together in a nightmare of violence. He had done what he was trained to do. He had been efficient. He had been deadly. And when it was over, he had walked through the wreckage and felt nothing but emptiness. That emptiness had never gone away. The next morning, Cathra found him. She walked into his workshop without knocking, her mechanical leg clicking against the floor. Cole looked up from the engine he was pretending to repair. "We need to talk," she said. "I thought we were done talking." "We are not." She sat down on a crate across from him, her yellow eyes steady. "I spent last night thinking. About you. About the war. About why you ran away. I didn't run. I walked. You abandoned your people. You refused the highest honor they could give you. Why?" Cole set down his wrench. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he pulled back his sleeve to reveal the tattoo on his shoulder. "You know what this means," he said. "The 77th Void Stalkers. We were the best. We completed missions that no one else could complete. We saved thousands of lives." He paused. "We also killed thousands of lives. Children, sometimes. Young soldiers who were barely old enough to hold a weapon. We burned through them because that was our job." Cathra's expression did not change. "War is cruel. Both our peoples learned that. It's not about cruelty. It's about what I became." Cole's voice was quiet but hard. "At the end, I couldn't tell the difference between fighting for survival and fighting because I liked it. I was good at killing. Too good. And I was scared of what I might do if I kept going." He stood and walked to a small locker in the corner. From inside, he pulled out an old military uniform, folded and faded. Beneath it was a certificate, still sealed in plastic. "The Serpent's Fang," he said, holding up the certificate. "They wanted to give me this. A blade forged from the hull of the first human ship to survive a Draconian attack. Only 47 were ever made. Mine is still sitting in a vault on Earth, waiting for me to claim it. Why didn't you?" "Because that sword represents everything I wanted to forget. Heroes hold that blade. Warriors who fought with honor and courage. I'm not a hero. I'm a butcher who learned how to dress up his butchery in medals and glory." Cathra was silent for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer than before. I understand more than you know. My people call me a hero, too. I held the line at Theric Station while our transports escaped. I killed 63 humans in a single battle. She looked down at her mechanical leg. I lost my leg saving my commander from a grenade. They gave me medals. They put my name in songs. And every night, I see the faces of those I killed. Cole met her eyes. In them, he saw something he had not expected: recognition. She was not his enemy. She was his mirror. We are both broken, Kethra said. Both hiding from what we were. But hiding will not matter soon. A storm is coming. She told him about Tyreth the Reclaimer, a new warlord rising in the Draconian Empire, gathering the scattered fleets under a banner of vengeance. He preached that the peace with humanity was a betrayal, that the Dragon Wars had ended too soon. He wanted to finish what the old empire had started. His followers grow every day, Kethra said. Moderate voices are being silenced. Within a year, maybe two, he will have enough power to launch an invasion. And this time, humanity may not survive. Cole felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Why are you telling me this? Because Tyreth has a list of enemies. Humans who hurt his people during the war. Names of soldiers he wants dead. She paused. Your name is on that list, Cole Brennan. The Ghost of Corinth Prime. He considers you a personal insult to Draconian honor. Then let him come. I'm tired of running anyway. This is not about you alone. If Tyreth wins, billions will die. Both our peoples will bleed until nothing is left. Kethra leaned forward. You are a symbol, whether you want to be or not. The humans who remember the war, they remember you. The Draconians who want peace, they fear what your return would mean to Tyreth's movement. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting that we stop hiding. Both of us. Find others like us, veterans who want peace instead of war. Build a coalition. Show the galaxy that enemies can become allies. Cole shook his head. I'm just a mechanic now. I fix engines. I don't lead armies. You were never just a mechanic. Kethra stood, towering over him. You were the best soldier humanity ever produced. And now you have a choice. Stay in the shadows and wait for death. Or step into the light and fight for something worth fighting for. She walked to the door and stopped. Think about it. But don't think too long. The storm is coming whether we are ready or not. She left him alone with his thoughts and the ghost of a sword waiting on a distant planet. The journey to Earth was dangerous. Tyrus forces controlled 3 of the 7 jump gates between the outer systems and the human homeworld. His spies watched the shipping lanes. His assassins waited at every port. Cole and his coalition traveled in Kethra's cargo hauler, hiding among containers of grain and machine parts. Nate flew the ship, his old skills returning as they dodged patrols and slipped through checkpoints. Diane set up a small medical station in the cargo bay, ready for the injuries she knew would come. Lucas spent his time studying the ship's systems, looking for weaknesses they could exploit if they were boarded. They almost made it. Without incident, the attack came at the 3rd jump gate. Just 2 days from Earth, 3 Draconian fighters dropped out of the void, their weapons already charging. Tyrus zealots hunting for the Ghost of Corinth Prime. Hold on, Nate shouted as he threw the ship into a spinning dive. Plasma bolts streaked past the cockpit, close enough to scorch the hull. The old hauler groaned under the stress, but Nate coaxed every bit of speed from her engines. We can't outrun them, Kethra said. She was strapped into the co-pilot's seat, her claws digging into the armrests. Then we outthink them. Nate's eyes were fixed on the tactical display. Cole, remember that trick we pulled at Theric Station? Cole was already moving. Lucas, I need you to rig a feedback loop in the cargo bay doors. Diane, get everyone secured. This is going to hurt. They worked with desperate speed. Outside, the fighters closed in, their weapons tearing chunks from the hauler's armor. One shot hit the engine compartment, and Nate felt the ship shudder. Now would be good, he said through gritted teeth. Cole punched the release button. The cargo bay doors flew open, and 300 containers of grain exploded into space. The fighters flew straight into the debris cloud, their sensors blinded by the swirling mass. Lucas triggered the feedback loop, and the container's emergency beacons began broadcasting false signals, creating dozens of phantom targets on the enemy radar, done in the confusion. Nate dove for the jump gate and pushed through before the fighters could recover. They emerged on the other side with half their systems failing and smoke filling the corridors. But they were alive. Diane worked through the night, treating burns and patching wounds. Nate had taken shrapnel to his shoulder, and she had to dig the metal out with tweezers while he bit down on a leather strap. "You'll fly again," she told him when it was over. "But you need to rest." "Rest when we're dead," Nate muttered. "Get me back to the cockpit." They limped into Earth's orbit 2 days later. The human homeworld hung before them, blue and green and impossibly beautiful. Most of the people on the ship had never seen it. For Cole, it was a homecoming he had never wanted. The Hall of Valor stood in the old capital city, a massive building of white stone and gleaming metal. Inside were monuments to every major conflict in human history, from the ancient wars on Earth's surface to the battles fought among the stars. And deep in its heart was the Vault of Blades, where 47 serpents' fangs waited for their owners. Cole walked through the hall alone. The others waited outside, watching for trouble. His footsteps echoed on the polished floor as he passed statues of generals and admirals, heroes whose names were taught in every school. He found his own name on a small plaque near the entrance to the vault. Cole Brennan, 77th Void Stalkers. Hero of Corinth Prime. Honor declined. The vault keeper was an old woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She had been expecting him. 20 years, she said softly. "We wondered if you would ever come. I wasn't ready. Are you ready now?" Cole thought about the coalition waiting outside. The Draconians and humans who had put aside their hatred to stand together. The war that was coming, and the lives that would be lost if they failed. "No," he said honestly. "But I'm here anyway." The vault keeper smiled and pressed her hand to a scanner. The heavy doors swung open, revealing a chamber filled with blades mounted on velvet stands. Each one was unique, forged from the hull of a ship that had survived the impossible. Cole's sword was at the far end, untouched for 2 decades. The blade was dark gray, almost black, with an edge that still gleamed like new. The handle was wrapped in leather, worn smooth by hands that had never held it. He reached out and touched the metal. It was cold at first, then warm, as if recognizing its owner. Memories flooded through him that they were different now. Not just the killing and the fear, but also the friends he had saved, the innocence he had protected, the moments of humanity in the middle of hell. He understood something then that he had not understood before. The sword was not a celebration of violence. It was a promise. A promise that those who carried it would use their strength to protect the weak, to fight for something greater than themselves. He picked up the blade and slid it into the sheath the vault keeper offered. It felt right at his hip, like a piece of himself he had lost and finally recovered. When he walked out of the Hall of Valor, the sun was setting over the city. Cathara and the others were waiting, their faces tense with anticipation. "Is it done?" Nate asked. Cole drew the sword and held it up. The fading light caught the blade, making it glow like a dark star. "It's done." News of his return spread across human space within hours. The ghost of Corinth Prime had emerged from the shadows. The mechanic had reclaimed his blade. Veterans who had hidden their service records began to speak openly. Politicians who had advocated for peace found new courage. And on 100 worlds, people who had never met Cole Brennan began to believe that maybe, Just maybe, the next war could be prevented. Tyreth responded 3 days later with a declaration of war. His fleets began moving toward human space, and his voice thundered across the communication networks, promising vengeance and glory. "The human called Brennan thinks he can stop us," Tyreth said. "He thinks his rusty blade and his handful of traitors can stand against the might of the draconian people. He is wrong. We will crush him. We will burn his worlds. We will make his species kneel." Cole watched the broadcast in silence. When it was over, he turned to his coalition, humans and draconians standing together in a room that would have been impossible to imagine 20 years ago. "He's afraid," Cole said. "If he wasn't, he wouldn't need to make speeches. He would just attack." He looked at each face in turn, seeing the scars, the doubts, the hope. "We have something he doesn't understand. We have people who chose peace when hate would have been easier. That makes us stronger than any fleet." Cathara stepped forward, her yellow eyes bright. "Then let us show him what the broken can build." Cole nodded and drew his sword one more time. The blade caught the light, a promise and a warning. "The war starts now," he said. "But this time, we're not fighting alone." Outside, the stars waited. And somewhere in the darkness, the future of two civilizations hung in the balance, ready to be shaped by a mechanic who had finally stepped out of the shadows and into the light. The assassins came 3 nights later. Cole woke to the sound of his door being forced open. Years of training took over before his mind could catch up. He rolled off his cot and grabbed the welding torch from his workbench, just as the first attacker rushed through. The Draconian was young, barely 20 by the look of his bright scales. He carried a curved blade that gleamed in the darkness. His eyes burned with religious fury. "For Tyreth," he hissed. "For the Reclaimer." Cole did not answer. He activated the welding torch and drove it into the assassin's throat. The Draconian screamed and fell, his scales sizzling. A second attacker lunged from the shadows, and Cole spun to meet him, grabbing a hull cutter from the wall. The fight was brutal and short. Cole moved like he had 20 years ago, his body remembering patterns his mind had tried to forget. The second assassin died with the hull cutter buried in his chest. The third managed to slash Cole's arm before a blast from a plasma pistol took him down. Cole looked up to see Cathara standing in the doorway, the pistol smoking in her clawed hand. "You're welcome," she said. Cole's arm was bleeding badly, but he barely noticed. He stared at the 3 bodies on his workshop floor, young Draconians who had come to kill him in the name of a warlord he had never met. "This is just the beginning," Cathara said. "Tyreth will send more. Better ones next time." Cole pressed a rag against his wound. "Then I need to stop being an easy target. You need to stop being alone." She was right. He had known it since their conversation 3 days ago, but he had not wanted to admit it. Running was no longer an option. Hiding was no longer an option. The only path left was forward. "I have contacts," Cole said slowly. "People I served with. People who might listen. Then call them." He made the first call that night. Nate Holloway had been a pilot in the war, one of the best. He had flown Cole's team into impossible situations and somehow always got them out alive. Now he lived on a farming moon called Verdant 3, growing crops and trying to forget the years he spent dropping bombs on draconian cities. "Cole?" Nate's voice crackled through the communicator. "Is that really you? I thought you were dead." "Not yet, but I might be soon if I don't get some help." He explained everything. Tyreth, the assassins, Cathara's proposal. There was a long silence when he finished. "You want me to leave my farm," Nate said. "Leave my peaceful life. Go back to fighting. I'm not asking you to fight. I'm asking you to fly. We need to reach people, build something, before Tyreth burns everything down." Another silence. Then a heavy sigh. You saved my life 4 times during the war. I guess I owe you at least 1 trip into hell. He paused. But this better be worth it, Cole. It will be. The second call was harder. Diane Whitmore had been a combat medic, attached to the Void Stalkers for their most dangerous missions. She had pulled Cole out of burning wreckage twice and held his hand while he screamed through field surgery without anesthesia. After the war, she had opened a clinic on a refugee station, treating victims of the conflict from both sides. I'm not a soldier anymore, Diane said when Cole finished his pitch. I heal people now. I don't hurt them. I'm not asking you to hurt anyone. But people are going to get hurt no matter what. Don't you want to be there to help them? She was quiet for a long time. You always knew how to talk me into things. Fine. But if anyone asks me to pick up a weapon, I'm walking away. Fair enough. The third call was the hardest. Lucas Grant had been a demolitions expert, a quiet man with steady hands and a talent for turning buildings into rubble. During the war, Draconian raiders had attacked his home colony and killed his wife and daughter. For years afterward, he had fought with a fury that scared even his teammates, but something had changed. Cole had heard rumors that Lucas had found peace, had even befriended some Draconians who had lost their own families to human attacks. I know what you're thinking, Lucas said when Cole reached him. You're thinking I still hate them. That I'll jump at the chance to blow things up again. I'm thinking you understand loss better than anyone I know. And that makes you exactly who we need. Lucas laughed, a tired sound. I spent 10 years hating every Draconian alive. It nearly destroyed me. Then I met one who had lost his children to a human raid. We sat together and cried for an hour. 2 enemies, weeping over the same kind of pain. He paused. I'm done fighting for revenge. But if you're fighting to stop more families from being destroyed, then count me in. Kethra brought her own people. Moderate Draconians who remembered the cost of the last war and refused to pay it again. Old soldiers like her, carrying scars both visible and hidden. They were few at first, but their numbers grew as word spread through underground channels. The coalition began to take shape. They met in secret on a dead moon, far from Tyreth's spies. Humans and Draconians sitting in the same room, looking at each other with wary eyes and heavy hearts. This is impossible, someone muttered. We can't work together. There's too much blood between us. Cole stood and faced the room. That blood is exactly why we have to try. We all lost people in the war. Every one of us has reasons to hate the other side. But Tyreth is counting on that hate. He wants us divided. He wants us weak. The only way to beat him is to become something he never expected. Allies. And why should we follow you? A Draconian asked, his voice harsh. You killed our warriors. You broke our sieges. You are a hero to humans and a demon to us. Cole met his gaze without flinching. I'm no hero. I'm a mechanic who used to be a soldier. I'm tired, and I'm old, and I've made more mistakes than I can count. But I'm willing to stand beside anyone who wants peace. Human or Draconian. That's all I can offer. The room was silent. Then Kethra stepped forward to stand beside him. I am Kethra Version, she said. I lost my brother at Karnth Prime. For 20 years, I dreamed of killing the human who took him from me. She looked at Cole. Now I stand with that human, because I finally understand that vengeance only creates more victims. And I'm tired of burying the young. One by one, others stepped forward. Nate, Diane, Lucas, Draconians whose names Cole did not yet know. They formed a circle, enemies becoming allies, bound together by the shared desire to stop a war before it started. We need more than good intentions, Lucas said. We need a symbol. Something to unite the people who are still afraid to speak up. All eyes turned to Cole. The Serpent's Fang, Kethra said quietly. It's time to claim your sword. Cole closed his eyes. He thought of the blade waiting in a vault on Earth, carrying all the weight of a past he had tried to escape. Then he opened his eyes and nodded. Then we go to Earth,